Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for this amazing conversation with Clover Hope and Anik Khan. My name is Jeffrey Nugdeen. I'm the Executive Director of the Asian American Writers Workshop, and it's really my pleasure to welcome you tonight to our virtual event space. Please let us know where you are signing in from in the chat. I personally am speaking to you all from New Jersey, which is on ancestral and unceded Munsee Lenape land. For those of you who are new to the workshop, we are a national nonprofit organization dedicated to uplifting and amplifying Asian and Asian diasporic storytelling. At a time when these communities are specifically vulnerable, we continue to offer a space in which we can imagine a more just future. At the workshop, we really do approach the idea of both who is a writer and who is Asian American in the spirit of radical inclusivity. And it's one of the many reasons that we really are so thrilled to host tonight's conversation. Visit AAWW.org to learn more about our work and other upcoming events. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And YouTube is actually where a recording of this event will be uploaded afterwards. During the event, we ask that all members practice nonviolence in the chat. Comments that are racist, transphobic, homophobic, ableist, and/or misogynist will be flagged and the person will be removed from the event. We'll have time for audience Q&A at the end of the hour, so do drop in any questions that you have for either of our speakers using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. I'm going to briefly introduce both Anik and Clover by reading their bios. We'll bring them on screen and then we'll get started. Anik Khan is a Queens, New York City-based artist and entrepreneur who makes hip-hop that travels, drawing from his immigrant roots and his inner city upbringing. His critically acclaimed Kites EP put him on the industry's radar in 2017, leading to a nationwide tour with Jadena, brand campaigns with Coca-Cola, and even praise from Sir Elton John. Anik is gearing up to release his denied approved double EP in the summer of 2021. The project is based around his battle for his US citizenship and reflects the realities of a global artist who is dedicated to bridging different cultures and communities together. His recent TEDx talk highlights his love for food, culture, and all things Bangladesh. Clover Hope is a Brooklyn-based writer who has previously worked as an editor at Vibe, XXL, Billboard, and Jezebel.com. Hope has written for a range of publications far and wide, including Essence, GQ, Wall Street Journal Magazine, The New York Times, Cosmo, Elle, and The Village Voice, among others. She's currently a contributing editor at Pitchfork and an adjunct professor at NYU. She was a co-writer on Beyonce's Black is King film, and her book, The Motherlode, 100 Plus Women Who Made Hip Hop, a comprehensive history of female rappers, is currently in bookstores everywhere. And I believe we'll also be sharing links in our chat tonight where you can purchase those books, courtesy of our friends at Books Are Magic. So please join me in welcoming both Anik and Clover on screen. Thank you both for being here, and thanks everyone for tuning in. Have a great event.
Starting off.
Yeah, I don't. Hi, what's up, y'all? I'm Anik. What's up, Clover? How are you?
Hey, what's up? We were talking about Sybil's before, like in the prep.
We was.
So that is on my mind.
One of the best places to get some Guyanese food. You go to Sybil's.
Yeah, Sybil's in Queens. So I don't know if there are. I mean, I guess we can start off with like some background. Just a little about me, just a little context to kind of like add to the bio that was just presented. But like I've been a music writer for like 15 plus years and just like a general hip hop enthusiast for most of my life. I'm from Queens. The bio says Brooklyn based, but I'm from Queens. And I was born in Guyana, actually. Came to the States when I was around like a year old. First to Brooklyn and then to Queens for like, kindergarten and like beyond. I think, I guess for both of us, there's definitely something to be said about like growing up in an ethnically diverse neighborhood. And not really kind of, I think I always thought of myself as an immigrant or as like non-American at first, and kind of like realized that I was not, like from this land because it was just like our home culture was so different. Like in school, like it would be, just this real blend and mixing of cultures. So I think it's interesting just how we still, we have that like that bridge of hip hop, you know, to kind of like make, you know, like make that connection. And you know, I would love to know like how you like discovered hip hop, and then maybe I can like kind of jump in on that.
Yeah, for sure. I was 9 years old. I was at a Bengali deli in Astoria, Queens, and my sister was with me, and there was a bunch of cassette tapes on display because they had like the back of every deli always had like uh Bollywood movies and cassettes because they would bootleg them and rent them to you because I was the only way to watch that stuff back then. So in this like massive like assortion of of cassettes and Bengali cassettes and Bollywood music, there was one rap album, and it was "It's Dark and Hell Is Hot" by DMX, and I just saw this cover, and I was like, "What is this?" And my sister was like, "You know, I'll get it for you." And she was also super into hip hop at the time, and she bought it, and the entire family, we had one Walkman, and I and I hit play, and for some reason I think like my thing, like I think I fast forwarded by mistake or something, like before I ever hit play. And so when I first hit play, the first thing I ever heard as an immigrant, I had just moved there, I'm 9, so I just moved there 4 years now. The first rap song I ever heard was Rough Riders Anthem. So I hit play and all I hear is dong, da dong, 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 da dong, dong. And I absolutely lost my mind.
Yeah.
The rest is history. So,
That's so funny because that was also my kind of I mean there were like so many other songs and albums that I guess like was introduced to before then, but the DMX one was like just like it was the first one I discovered on my own, like through like Napster. Like I downloaded it actually.
right.
And so like just having that connection of like like a rapper from Yonkers and like a little girl from Guyana, like who's connects to that, I guess, rage and that outsider feeling, I think, is what it brings us together. Like I think there's like a line in your song in Lingo about like you mix the foreign with the hood. And it's like I just love that line because it just kind of speaks to like it's all hip hop is about coming from an outsider perspective and kind of creating a new conversation amongst different outsiders, and like within that cultures are blending and like trading, and but it is all kind of like based in like Black music and Black culture. But like I wonder, I guess like maybe we could talk about like our just how Queens maybe like influence like our work, and like how like the neighborhood and the community kind of like blended into the music, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
uh,
I think Queens like has pros and cons, way more pros than cons. But the pros were obviously, it's like 140 something languages in one borough, and we're all together. We always have to interact with each other. I met Guyanese people when I was like 6, and I was like, "Aren't you Bengali or Indian?" And they're like, "No, I'm Guyanese." And like I had to understand that like there's Indo-Caribbeans and Caribbeans and like all of these things, and you just learn these things just having friends more than you really do in school. Like it's not like I was in history class and somebody was like, "Let me teach you about like Caribbean history," or like no one, there wasn't anything like that in our schools at least. And so like the wonders of Queens is obviously like how amazingly diverse it was, and how that influenced me as an artist and as a person. Like even before artistry, like as a person, I think the education Queens gave me is why I could have such a big friend circle that all looks like the United Nations. Why like somebody from Brazil can talk to me, and then I'll instantly be like, okay, so boom, Iraqaju has some of the best fish, and they're like, what? Why do you know about that? And that like instantly makes them more open-minded to have a conversation with me. And so I think that type of education and that cultural awareness has helped me get closer to a lot of different ethnicities and nationalities and people. At the same time, I had to realize the rest of the world isn't Queens. The rest of the world is not New York City. And, I also had to unlearn a lot of things in terms of like what I grew up with. Because in Queens, everybody was like, nah, you black with nice hair, it's fine. You know what I'm saying? Or, you know, like dangerous things to say in terms of when you're a young boy, you know what I'm saying, living in the hood, like trying to figure out how to maneuver through that stuff. And, you know, and I think as I got to see the rest of the world, as I got to see Southern America, Western America, I was understanding my place and understanding more that, you know, it's not what I thought it was in New York City. And New York City is amazing, but there are the rest of the world. I mean, the rest of America, and I have to, you know, consider them and the way they live and who they are and their plights and empathize for that as well. So I think
Yeah.
that's like the best way I could say it, I think.
No, I can totally relate because like growing up in Queens, like you're so like I was just like my social circle was pretty mixed. Like the makeup of my schools also was like Black American, Black Caribbean, like East Asian, South Asian, Indo Caribbean, like a mixed race. Not a whole lot of white kids. Like that was the one where it was like, okay, like I didn't grow up in a predominantly white neighborhood.
I
So
didn't meet a white person until I was like 15. I'm sorry. I was gonna,
yeah, no,
okay.
yeah, like
Yeah.
I like most of the like in my school it was like mostly like mixed race, like if it was anything.
Yeah.
And like I started to kind of like find that through hip hop is where like identities and cultures kind of like overlap. I guess the more I learned about like you know, just its origins and then kind of like the purpose of it is all about like community, you know. So I think I had like discovered you know, like as an immigrant, like my dad would play like all different types of music. Like we were learning American music, or I should say, like I was learning American music growing up through him, discovering it, exploring it on his own. Like he would play, you know, like soca and reggae and all that, but then also like Sam Cooke and like Madonna and Whitney Houston. And so I kind of was like, I would flip through like his vinyl collection and just be like, what is this? What is this? But he didn't play much rap. So that was interesting. Like I kind of discovered that more on my own, like in early, I guess like mid, like 80s, late 80s, 90s, more so early 90s. Like as a teenager. And that was where I kind of like saw that, okay, there are other cultures outside of Queens or other like boroughs outside of Queens. It's like, oh, wait, the Bronx exists and all that. So like, you know, it's, yeah, I think that there's all these like bridges that I think connect like through hip hop and then through just like I just really go back to like that line that you have like about the foreign and the hood. Like it's all kind of like speaking to that like existence, I guess, and identities merging through this music. So like that's kind of what I don't know, that I always kind of like cling to, 'cause, like hip hop as the unifying element, because it represents like the Black diaspora and then like creates sort of this like universal language for other cultures to experience, the Black and Brown diaspora. But it's always been like, you know, just a story of people on the margins. So, and I think Queens is like a story of people on the margins, right? Like it's just this mixing of people who are like just coming, you know, the whole like melting pot thing.
For sure. No, absolutely. We you know, we're like Queens is like the hood foreigners. Like that's if the
Oh,
borough
that's
had
good.
like a
Yeah, yeah.
that's what we would be probably, you know, outside of like Forest Hills and stuff. But you know,
Right,
like
right, right. Yeah.
but yeah, like yeah, obviously there's some nice parts, but yeah, like you know, this yeah, I think you hit it right on the money.
Yeah. And it's like this thing of like we're looking, it's I guess a sense of belonging that like both kind of are looking like hip hop wanting to belong in some way. And then
Mhm.
like, you know, just the immigrant experience is kind of like wanting to belong, but also bring a natural curiosity and like criticism. Like, cause I think what is like I guess relatable about both spaces is that it's like being able to come from this like more critical perspective of like seeing from the outside what is wrong, like what's wrong with America, or like what's wrong with like, you know, these different kind of like spaces that we're entering. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's, you know, like I just feel like that's like a real thread, I guess, or something like that.
Nah, for sure.
Yeah. And we probably both try to tell stories that reflect that in a way. like you and your music and like me and my writing. And I wonder like what is the type of like world building that you do through your music in a way that incorporates like your culture, like because you have these lines, like you have the plantain line and like the in that song, like do you kind of actively, I know there's ways that I kind of like actively do it, like is there ways that you kind of like actively throw, you know, like kind of like create that thread
Yeah,
with
I
community?
mean,
Yeah.
for me, like it's so natural for me to always have Black and brown culture on my mind,
Yeah.
and it and like it not be separate. Like it's weird. Like it's weird because like they're clearly separate, and you learn that later and stuff. But
Yeah.
as you're growing up, because you're in Queens, and it's such it's there's like this fog of like togetherness in there somewhere, and that makes you think like Black and brown shit is almost dangerously the same shit, and so because of that, it's always been natural for me to, you know, uh, make lines about like plantain, or like she wants to feel me, tangerine, feel me, like the things, like things like that. And but in terms of like actually trying to push things forward for world growth and stuff, I think my goal is always going to be to have whatever voice I can for the unspoken and the unheard. And I think, marginalizing is dangerous and grouping is dangerous. And so, yeah, about jerk chicken in Jamaica, but there's pepper pot in Guyana, there's doubles in Trinidad, yeah, about North India and Punjab and stuff, but there's Bangladesh, there's Nepal, there's Sri Lanka, and I think I just naturally, try my best to not speak for those worlds, but speak from my world, which relates to those worlds. The Somalian hijabi that you know never seen herself in anything. Like I would hope that she finds a home in my music. When I say slide through your block with a bunch of Fatimas, like I would hope that, she can clearly visualize that, like, I can do both, or you can be both of these things. And Anik's sister can be a hijabi, but Anik can be a head ass. It's all fine, like, like it works. Like we can universally be all of these things. And some of the things I've done thus far has been like the TED Talk. I have a TED Talk, and it's called Finding Your Mustard Oil. And I compare mustard oil, which is a very specific ingredient, niche ingredient in Bengali culture. And I compare it to other ingredients and other customs and cultures, and how everyone has their own mustard oil, and how grouping can be dangerous. And I also, collaborated with Anik Khan, which is, Infatuation's biggest food festival. And they held it for the first time in Queens back in 2018. And I made sure, that there were vendors from Queens that like were street vendors that like represent the streets of Queens, standing next to people like Shake Shack and John and Vinny's and Mario Bertali and stuff like that. And it's not something I actually think about. It's just like naturally happens. Like when Anik Khan hits me and goes, "Yo, we want to do this with you." I'm like, "Bet," but you got to make sure you have these people in there. Like that's like the first thing that comes out of my mouth, kind of, And it's the same thing when I shoot music videos or do anything like that, or hey, who do you want to cast? Dark skinned people, please. Like it just naturally comes out. Not that I don't want the other. Not that I'm excluding light skins or anything in that sense, but I am just going out my way to, it just naturally happens where I'm like, I am the underdog. I felt like the underdog my entire life. My country's felt like the underdog my entire life. So I relate to that. And I would like to put that in more visually and more, more platforms, more people, more places. And so people, more people are used to it and more people are seeing it, and I think for me, that's like the most important part, and the things that I'm working on the most, like Hassan Minaj, Riz Ahmed, like these people are all great, Minnie Kaling, they're all great, but I don't necessarily relate to their come up, and my come up is extremely different, and a very specific one to Queens and New York City and Toronto and London, where you have South Asians grow up in poor economic situations, living in one-bedroom apartments in these neighborhoods. And, I want to just make sure there's that perspective as well for those people that are from there. So they have something deeper to relate to outside of just like, oh, he looks like me,
Right. And it's like a natural, I'm glad you said it's like I guess like it happens so organically within music that other industries can maybe learn from as far as just, like it for some reason it's really hard for white people to like think about diversity or like just like they don't think about it as like just a
Yeah,
natural
it
thing.
it starts getting complicated. Like, oh, should I do this? Should I
Right.
do
It's like,
that?
I gotta,
You don't
and
gotta
then it's
think
like
about it
a
that much.
permutations and it's like
Yeah,
this many quotas and like all that. And it's like, it's just the world. Like it's just
yeah,
reflect the world. Um,
yeah,
but I think that's also something you touched on is like the like language and how it's hard to like the grouping that happens. Even when people say like Asian American, like they're kind of like a lot of times just thinking or like imagining like one group of people, right? Like it doesn't like that's the constant problem with language. Like it's like terms can't like fully represent people. And like
yeah.
that is yeah, I guess kind of part of your whole thing, like lingo. But then, it's kind of the thing where you get like fumbling, a little fumbling happens, like the term by I forget how to say it all the time, BIPOC or BIPO BIPOC.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like like get the intention behind an acronym like that, but that ends up in trying to be inclusive, actually erasing identity because it's turning
Hmm.
it into a shorthand instead of just like referring to people like as individuals. And so, I know that term is divisive or that it's such a new phrase and it's like divisive, but like it makes me think of that, like, in terms of
Yeah,
grouping
no,
people together. Yeah.
for sure. I 100% agree. Like, I hate AAPI month. Like, I don't like it. Like I'm like,
Hmm.
it was mad. Like, you know what? Asia is like huge. It's
Right,
like
right, right.
Iraq is in Asia. You know what I'm saying? I ain't never seen
Mhm.
nobody talking about Iraq and Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month or whatever that, whatever it's called. And
Mhm.
yeah, I do think it's wild dangerous to like group that stuff. And yeah, that's why I like the lingo and language and just these things I think are important. And I think the best way to do it is like we are, like you also said, is just naturally doing shit instead of just like being like, oh, let's make a month for all of y'all, or let's let's group this together for this thing. It's like, no, man, like
Mhm.
let's just keep doing shit, like a bunch of stuff. And as we keep doing stuff, like hire the right people and they will naturally do things that will put you on. You know what I mean? And like do it often. Don't make it a month. Just do it all the time.
Mhm.
You know, like make it a conscious thing that you're aware of.
Right, like within like I guess the problem is that like that is how we think, but like these industries that are like run by kind of like white
But
forces and people like
but
don't because they don't naturally think like that, they have to like, and it's such a within the system, it's kind of like, well, how do you then like reflect that onto the system? And I mean part of that is just like hiring people who can then reflect it, like
right.
people like us who have that natural point of view instead of having just white people in charge. But yeah, I totally
For
get,
sure.
yeah, like it's such a it ends up then becoming like a problem to solve. Like, all right, how do we solve the problem of like the lack of diversity? It's such a yeah, I just feel like it's the conversation
Tricky
is
field.
ongoing. Yeah, it's
Tricky
tricky.
field. Yeah.
Maybe we should talk about like I guess like within that like appropriation as a I don't know, an ongoing conversation because I feel like it does I sometimes get like um I just get like annoyed anytime it kind of like I don't know, kind of comes up as a topic because I know that people are not going to really like it's not going to be a lot of times it's not like a thoughtful discussion, it's more so like surface. Like so and so
Right.
did this and it's problematic, but it's like, well, what like can we actually get underneath that, whatever?
Right.
Like what's interesting now is like the appropriation that's happening kind of like it just skips from one venue to the next, but like on TikTok and like how that space is like there's so many ways that that is like the definition of appropriation. Like it's taking
Right.
all this kind of culture, a lot of like black and brown culture, like out of context and putting it into the hands of people who don't understand it, and then like they can then get credited and go viral with someone else's like culture or kind of like creation. So And I think people are kind of contending with that in a new way. So I wonder what you think about that, and like, I don't know, like how the conversation can kind of like evolve beyond the catchphrases, or kind of like, I just like, there's no answer, like, is my thing. Like, we just have to kind of like keep talking, you know. um
Yeah, I have no idea. Like it's a tricky subject. I really have no idea. In terms of how it could progress and move forward. Um, I definitely know what I need to do in terms of what I'm aware of my world, and I think that's the best I can personally do. I can't pay attention
yeah,
to what 80 million people are thinking about a situation, but I can think about like, yo, this is Black culture. You're coming in it. You are a guest here, and so anytime I make content or create, I avidly think about that. I go like, yeah,
hmm
I'm a guest, so what's that mean? How do I do this? A great example would be like, being from Queens, being a brown boy, being from the hood. I grew up saying the N-word my entire life until like 7 years ago. And I had to unlearn a lot of that stuff because I had to leave out and I had to understand. I had to be like, no, you're a guest, bro. Like you have your own place, they have their own place, but it's not the same, and you have to realize that. And so for me, all I can do is like use my um experiences and try my best to know how to appreciate what's going on and do it in the most natural way I possibly can. I think people I think people know their answers. I don't know how to progressively move forward in terms of
hmm
appropriation, but I know when single individuals are doing it, whether it's a brand or a person, I think they know in their heart. Like if they gotta ask, is this appropriating? It's probably appropriating. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just really what it comes down to. Like when I wear 2 braids in my hair, I'm not tripping because I'm like, Indian's been braiding hair forever, so I don't care what you tell me. You know what I'm saying? But if I get like 12 cornrows, then we got a different conversation. And I think it's and I think that's very like specific. And I think you have to be confident and stick to what you believe in. And if you have the right, I think it's so layered now. If you have the right support and you know what, why it is, then I can't wrong that. I can't be like, nah, that's not it, because
hmm
this is that person's truth, and they also have legitimate things to back up why this is. And it's as long as it's not disrespectful, and that's the problem, because disrespect
yeah,
ranges in terms of who feels disrespected to what. And that's why I think it always comes down to like the individual and how they, you know, uh, move forward or think about it as they go about these things, and that's how I do it, at least, you know. I've always been inclusive. Another great example would be like, I've always been inclusive of West Indians, always. And there's been sometimes people been like, oh, so you think you're West Indian? I'm like, no. But it's okay if you think that. I don't care if that's what you think or you think I'm appropriating. Like I go to Civils and Trin City Realty and know the people by heart. You're not about to tell me nothing right here. And I'm not going around claiming I'm Trinidadian or Guyanese or Jamaican. But yeah, I'm listening to Bobby McFerrin. I'm listening to Biddy McLean. I'm listening to, Rob VB, and I'm gonna enjoy myself as I do it. And just be aware that it isn't mine, but I'm a guest, and they're very accepting of it. And I can only speak in kind of in those perspectives more than I can like, how does this whole shit move forward? Because I have no
hmm
idea. You know.
yeah, right. Awareness and like
Oh,
willingness to learn. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I hope that makes sense. You know what I mean?
No,
Like,
totally. Yeah.
yeah,
And it's like individual, like just focusing on like individuals and like versus groupings can, starting there kind of like helps in a lot of these conversations.
yeah. I think so too, for sure. Like, I think like even down to like the Caribbean, like it's a great example because y'all are like these small islands that influence the entire world. Like London, like London's lingo is just y'all. You know, and
hmm
sorry about that. London's lingo is just y'all, and so uh, I can't help that I naturally grew up like saying Wagwan or blood clot. You know what I'm saying? Like all of these things,
yeah,
like these are
yeah.
these are who my friends are. This is what I'm surrounded. But what I can help is continuously to learn. What I can do is understand and ask questions of, you know, is this okay to say? Is this not okay to do? What is good here? What is good there? You know, and I think like if you're actively learning as you're going, like that is how you appreciate shit, you know, at least from my perspective. And then, you know, you go from there, I think. But yeah, I don't know,
Right.
really.
Yeah, no. I would love to know what the ASL is for Wagwan, by the way.
Oh yeah, that'd be
Uh,
fire. What is the ASL
but
for Wagwan?
amazing.
Tap back the replay to pick that one up. Um,
Okay.
I want to shift over to Q&A. Thank you both, for already having such a rich conversation. I thought to start, I'd actually just love to hear about both of your recent work. I think you both have exciting projects that I know I want more people to know about. So, Anik, I'd love if you could talk about the upcoming release and what you want people to know about. And Clover, I'd love for people to hear about the book and your project there.
Hmm.
Clover, I'll let you take it
Sure.
first.
Okay. So yeah, in February, I published a book called The Mother Lode, 100 Plus Women Who Made Hip Hop. And it's basically just my perspective of how young women, primarily like young Black and brown women, like created and made hip hop to what it is today. And the whole idea was like to not, for not like, to remember the people who should be remembered for like being creators and like co-creators of an entire culture. So the book is basically a bunch of entries, sort of like a coffee table encyclopedia textbook, but also, you know, I would say like a kind of lively textbook. Uh, just because I don't want it to sound like boring, because they're more like a magazine, I guess I would say. And so it basically, like chronicles and catalogs some of the women who are important from the 70s through to Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion, and just how that you see kind of like how you can essentially tell an entire story of hip hop just from the perspective of the women. You can get this rich story and still get a kind of like comprehensive like view and history of hip hop like through their eyes. And so that's kind of like that's my latest work. And then I do some writing and editing at Pitchfork, and music writing just in general. I'm trying to also get more into screenwriting, so that's kind of like the next wave. And producing.
Anik?
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, I have a double EP coming out. It's called Denied and Approved. It is about my journey through citizenship, because I got my citizenship at this point now 2 years ago. I got it after 27 years of working really hard to try to get it, and then the world shut down like 6 months later. And so Denied is from the perspective of me being stuck in Queens and being stuck in America, and what my music sounds like and what the lyrics pertains to. And Approved is what my music sounds like when they finally approved my citizenship, when they gave me, when they allowed me to travel, when they allowed me to have my visas, and I got to go to places like DR and Jamaica and Puerto Rico, and was able to be in the lands where I grew up with in Queens, and how that influenced me in my music. Um, and yeah, I'm super excited about that. We have a lot of which drops this summer. We have a lot of amazing activations coming with it, and I also am hopefully, if depending on how the world is slowly opening back up, and hopefully we'll be touring for the first time in my life. Outside of doing openings, it would be my first headlining tour now that I have all my paperwork and stuff like that this fall. And a lot of other stuff that I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about yet, but I definitely have some ventures outside of music that I'm working on, and I'm super excited about them. Some in the book world, some in the film world, and I'm super excited about those things dropping as well.
So related to touring, we actually have a question from the audience. Well, you already answered. Are you planning to tour? Hopefully, yes. But if so, where are you excited to visit? And how do you think traveling the world will impact your sound and your creative process?
Yeah, so the places I'm most excited to travel to is London and Toronto, because I just feel like they're queens, just bigger. And, and I'm really excited to also, like, that's where like my favorite music, me particularly, the music I like the most comes from London. And so I'm super excited to go there. And I think it'll influence me a lot. In terms of like the type of music I make, I'm not a guy that can just go in there and make anything. Like I have friends who go in there once a week and they just make music because they want to make music. And I think that's awesome. But I need to like live a little life and be able to do that. And that's why, Kites, my last project, came out in 2017, and it's been 4 years since then because, for 2 years, I almost kind of gave up and was like, well, I'm not getting my citizenship and I keep doing the same stuff out here. So I really don't have much more to write about right now. And, it was kind of depressing, and it stopped me from wanting to make stuff. And as soon as I got my date of oath and I was able to travel, then I started making approved, and then I worked backwards with denied and stuff like that. And I think as I tour, I'll only just keep making mad music because I'm gonna, for the first time in my life, experience things that I haven't experienced before in terms of being in front of fans internationally and being able to touch those lands, eat those foods, talk to the people. And I think that's gonna definitely influence how I, when I make a record and stuff.
I love that. That's, I mean, to be inspired by the world around us, right? You both talked about kind of moving the opposite end of traveling around the world. It's so clear listening to you both speak that you have such a deep love for your community and where you come from. And so I'd love to hear from both of you what giving back to your community looks like, and how you feel about, being in positions where you are, and what obligation, if any, you feel like you have to kind of give back to the community that you came from. Anik, I know you did some mutual aid work, with the pandemic, and I'd just love to hear both of your thoughts on giving back and kind of paying it forward to where your roots are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You wanna take it, or you want?
Oh no, go ahead.
Okay. I was just gonna say, giving back to me is important. I think it's consciously in me because of my father, because of the Bangladeshi Liberation War, and how that genocide has obviously like instilled something in my blood to always be conscious of how I can give back in the best ways possible. And I think like because it's such a new thing and it only happened like 50 years ago and stuff like that, I think for me, when I release a project or when I do anything in that sense, it's important for me to have certain activations that go back to, giving to my community because, it all started there. And, I've done some things, there was like Indo-Guyanese guy named Prakash Chiraman who has been wrongfully accused, and spent about 5 years in Rikers, and a whole thing happened. And I've been campaigning for that. I'm working. It's not completely final yet, but I'm working to link with a footwear company, and I'm giving back, free sneakers to labor workers. The people who stand up 12, 13 hours a day working on the things that, help run this country, and those are just a couple of things, but I hope I answered your question. I think the why and why I do it, I can't not think of aunties and uncles. I don't know if that's because like all I did was like go to functions with my family, or I don't know if it's big specifically a Queens thing, and I see like them, like the Mexican auntie like making spicy mangoes by the train, and when I pass her, I'm like, I'm buying 10. I'm not even gonna eat 10, but I'm gonna buy 10. Like I don't know what it is, but I've always the why for me is just like that's been my surroundings my entire life, and I don't know how to not have them a part of me conscious. Like I don't know how they're just consciously always a part of me when I'm thinking about what I'm doing. So that's why.
Yeah, I think like besides the mutual aid, I'm kind of always thinking about like specifically like the Queens girl, like the little Queens girl who's like coming up, and part of the book that I wrote was like trying to reflect that experience that is not always reflected, and then like allowing that girl to like be seen a little bit, because I think when, for example, like Nicki Minaj came out, it was kind of like, wow, like there's this Trinidadian like girl like who raps and like is like part of hip hop and is super into it, and like in the ciphers, and like that's like me growing up like loving hip hop. And I just want to like, I want those girls to kind of like be seen a bit. And so part of my work is just like working on, I guess like amplifying or, you know, like just kind of reflecting those voices, whether it's like through the writing or, you know, like after school program kind of like participation or things like that. And then there's a project that I have in mind with a friend. Well, it's a friend's project that I want to be working on that is neighborhood based. And I can't really talk about it, but it's kind of like it's kind of like just talking about like the creativity within like Queens and you know, I think I kind of like want to show how these like pockets of creativity kind of like come out of the neighborhood. Um, and you know, just basically like reflect all this creativity that comes out. So that's yeah, I guess like that's why. I mean, it's just I think it's just important for like all these communities because Queens is such a mosaic, to kind of like find ways to like feel like they're part of something, basically.
Yeah, I feel like we can't leave this conversation without some recommendations from you guys. So, Queen's recommendations, food, where to go, like whatever you want to share with folks. This is your open
Which country you want to start? Which country do you want to start
all
at?
of
That's
them,
the real question.
all of them, like whatever, wherever and whenever you want people to know about Queens. This is your call to promote and hype any
Okay.
Queen.
Since I brought up Sybil's, I have to mention Sybil's because that is
Absolutely.
it's really hard to find like Guyanese spots, basically, that spots that make Guyanese, it's like, you know, the black pudding and like, plory and like all these things that I grew up just like around so much that I was like, oh, this is everywhere. Like, but it was really only in Queens. And like when I kind of like moved to Brooklyn, I was like, where are the Guyanese spots? And like there was one that I found, but it wasn't the same as Sybil's. So Sybil's is like just like the neighborhood spot for, and I think there is one in Brooklyn, but it's like further from me. That is like, you know, they have, you know, like authentic, like super good like Guyanese dishes and like seriously like homemade. So I would definitely recommend that. And there's, you know, like a lot of like little pockets like around Richmond Hill, basically, um, that I'm sure like Anik will like shout out. But yeah, that's my number one recommendation.
For sure. I'm gonna give y'all three. I'm gonna say there's Sabri's on Steinway in Astoria. If you want North African seafood, I know you guys have had Cajun seafood and like crab legs and octopus and stuff like that. But imagine having that with North African spices and seasonings. It will change your life. It's called Sabri's. Uh, then, if you want Brazilian food, the best Brazilian food you're going to get is actually not in the city, even though there's a lot of Brazilian restaurants in the city. There's a huge Brazilian population in Astoria, and they have a spot called Villa Brazil, Villa La Brazil is the name, and it's on 34th Avenue, like 10 blocks away from where I grew up. And it is some of the best Brazilian barbecue slash just homemade Brazilian food you'll have. And then lastly, obviously, chicken over rice is a huge staple in New York City. And I know 53rd and 6th is the place everybody talk about. But the best chicken over rice you're ever going to get is on Steinway and 34th Avenue. His name is Mahmoud's. He literally has a truck called Mahmoud's Corner. And they close by 10 because they marinate the meat from before. They don't allow you to add the sauces yourselves because that is not cool. And so they do all of that stuff for you, and it comes with French fries, eggplants, rice, salad, all together in one amazing bowl for like $7. So those are going to be my three. There's like 18,000 more, but you know, we'll stay right there.
That's amazing. I'm, you know, being out in Jersey, I've been making a list of all the places I need to return to after things open up. So I'm going to add all of those. I want to move back. Actually, we have a question from the audience. Back to both of your work as writers and artists. And this is a question for both of you. Have you ever felt imposter syndrome? I'm an aspiring filmmaker and representation is very important to me, but there are days I get discouraged. So I'd love advice on how to navigate that. That is from Rohita in the audience tonight.
Yes, yes. Still often I'm actively working on not and or on just like appreciating like that the talent is just like kind of appreciating talent and not like questioning like the whys or like how like so I don't I don't know. I think it's like I don't know how to kind of like work like I don't know how to kind of like work against it, but I think it is like just kind of training your mind toward like positive reinforcement. It sounds really easy, but just like I deserve this and like I worked for this and like this is like, obviously other people could have this opportunity, but the reason I am here is because like I worked or like I kind of like put myself in a place to have this opportunity. It's a lot of like, kind of like you know, just positive kind of like thinking or reframing, I should say. Um, but sometimes it just does. It doesn't go away. I'm sure like the biggest kind of stars still have that feeling. It's just like, all right, what am I doing here? But it's just kind of like accepting that you belong, basically.
For sure. I definitely second that. Like positive reassurance is definitely mad important because if you're an artist, we're our worst critiques and we always go inside. So it's very important to, remind yourself that you're fucking fire. And then I think outside of that, that doesn't make it feel like it's gonna go away. But if you feel like, if you'll know in your heart, if like like this, that isn't your best work, regardless, like complete it. Because it's important to just give yourself like an objective, like, you know what, I'm gonna write for an hour today, even if it's not the illest stuff I write, I'm gonna do it. And that kind of shakes you out of things. And sometimes you need to do that and just kind of let it like just leave it for a second, like go like rock climbing or some shit, like like do something completely different and just give yourself some space to feel all of those things, but as you're still giving yourself that hour to like complete it, even if you don't like it. And I don't know, something just happens. It might be day 5 or it might be day 15. Something happens and then you're back in it as you were right before. So that would be my advice.
Thank you both for that. So we have time for one more question. So I want to end by asking you both, what is inspiring you lately? Either something you've read, something you're listening to, what is just kind of giving you hope or life or anything these days?
Yeah. For me, it's Topaz Jones's new album, Don't Go Telling Your Mama. It's very good. And he has a short film with it, and it's beautiful. And it inspired me to, level up in terms of my visuals and making sure that I'm also, showing brown kids the way, you know, he's showing Black people like so beautifully. And, Black people in general just inspire me all the time. And like, they have really, they, you know, they, they have made everything that I love. And and obviously for me, that inspires me a lot. And on the same token, from the other side of the world, South Asian creatives that are really like pushing the borders and like, there's a girl named Priya Raghu who's a, amazing songwriter and a fashionista, really. Like she kills it in the fashion side as well. Joy Crooks. There's multiple people on that side as well, but there's a lot of people inspiring me because I think everyone is, so ready to feel seen that the creators are going super hard, making sure, they're doing their part to make that happen. But that's for me.
Clover?
Hi, sorry I got cut out. I blame Mercury retrograde. It's like my internet cut out. So I missed the question.
Oh, it was just what is inspiring you lately? What are you reading or listening to that has been
Oh,
inspiring?
actually, a lot of, I mean, this is not just, I mean, I am kind of like promoting, but like a lot of women MCs actually, like a lot of women hip hop, like Big Jade just put out an album. She's from Texas. Flo Millie. Just kind of like I'm really interested in like what the new generation of like young women are kind of like doing and kind of how they're twisting the like the blueprint that was set up for them, and how they're kind of like maybe creating like their own lanes, or taking what has been done and like doing it differently. And so a lot of like I'm just kind of like naturally interested in that, besides it being part of like my work. Just because like I am, like I said, like I just am that girl who like was in hip hop and is like a creator within hip hop in a different way, not making music, but like creating. And like I just want to see like how it shifts over generations. And so a lot of like, yeah, what I've been kind of like taking in lately is just like, I want to hear like the young women who are kind of like coming out. And there's a lot, there's so many, like Chica, there's just so many voices. And so I like anyone who kind of I encourage people to kind of like seek out some of those young voices. I made a playlist of some like the women, some of the songs and artists featured in my book, and it's just under the Motherload on Spotify. So like that's you know, one way to kind of like find some of these, but there's so many playlists of just like, like some of the newer artists. So I recommend those.
So we are at time, just a couple minutes away from 8 o'clock. I want to thank you both so much for joining us tonight. This was such a rich conversation, and I feel like it's given me so many kind of things to think about, especially in our work moving forward. So thank you both so much. A round of virtual applause in the chat, please, for Anik and Clover.
Thank
And thank you
you.
everyone who joined us online. We're so grateful to share this space with you. I want to thank our ASL interpreters and our captioners for helping us make this event accessible. Finally, like I mentioned at the beginning, this event was recorded and will be available shortly on our YouTube channel if you'd like to revisit it or share with your friends. I want to mention one event that's coming up later this month. We're presenting Page Turner. It's our flagship publishing conference. Tickets are on sale right now. We'll be hosting over 40 industry professionals in conversation on all things writing, publishing, and we'll be ending the day with a special performance from Indian classical pianist Utsav Lal. We're going to share a link to purchase tickets for both the full day or single panels in the chat. You can also find more information online at aaww.org. We're going to leave the Zoom room open for a few minutes if people want to stick around and chat, but if you need to sign off, also totally fine. Again, Anik and Clover, thank you both so much. Everyone have a wonderful night in this heat wave that we're kind of trying to suffer through, and have a great weekend. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
for
for having
having
me.
me. Take care.